Because there's always the interesting thing there. Like when we added the controller mouse, man, that one dude was really pissed about that. He's like, why would you do that? Why would you, like, I can't believe you've done this sort of shit with, why is my controller moving my mouse? This is not okay with me. It's like, well, sorry? He's like, no, it's not okay. It's like, well, yeah, I kind of get it. We shouldn't be snagging your shit. Alright, we'll see how that works. Controller input black hole. Controller moving mouse is kind of funky. Yeah. Well, it allows the input to actually, like, it allows us to make more complicated UI screens and all that sort of stuff. Also, I don't want to shut up about it. It's just like, well, I don't want to. I don't want to put my hands on the keyboard to play the game. And I'm like, well, you got to log into Twitch. He's like, no. Like, well, I can't. I can't change Twitch's fucking login. No. Like, fine, fuck it. We'll just override, the mouse cursor with the controller. Is that gonna make you happy? He's like, yes, that will make me happy. I'm like, Jesus Christ. All right. Usually, when the controller is used for menus, it does a jump to each button. It depends on what the game is and everything like that. Also, you got to compare kind of how different studios even work. What is this? Is hookable non-focus key? I guess we'll just, we don't want this at all. The other thing is a lot of inputs and, UI systems, we're going to get compared to larger products. Yes, it's going to happen. But usually for all these things, you've got somebody who, goes and makes all this UI and makes all these systems and all this bullshit. And you've also, usually you're not using WebKit for UI that is in use by controllers. Usually you're going to use something like Scaleform. You're going to use something that has a lot more UI support for controllers, so you can determine all these sorts of things. So yeah, there's a lot of things that can be better, but we got to go with what we can do. And what we don't have is any information as to what buttons are, we're over. We have information about what's selectable on the screen, but that changes every damn second, so it's not the easiest thing in the world to get right. And I'm sure we could do better, but I think we're going to be prioritizing features over getting a better mouse cursor inside the audio settings menu. You think you're going insane because of the Seagal library? I mean, if there's something to go insane over, that thing's worthy of it. It seems like it. If somebody was scrolling on the wall, Seagal, you'd be like, yeah, this guy seems perfectly sane. You're avoiding Seagal right now. We call a function with a parameter 1. You go into the function, the parameter is 7. Well, did you pass the parameter in the right order? Such as, did you accidentally mess up the names of two variables and other one got swapped in there and you're expecting it to be that, but it's actually something else? Like HP and attack or something, and you forgot. Unable to find playlist by name custom using default. Okay, what was that error? Alright, in asset none, there's an enum property EBS game option with an invalid value write bots. I love that. That is great. And we just had type checking for our damned config file, and our file just said that our game data is busted. That's fucking great. That is exactly why we have these systems, to prevent me from screwing myself over. Also, welcome, Senacron. I don't think I said that. Yeah. Yeah, it was one of the things that in college, the first thing that people would write for networking class would be a chat program that worked on the local network, just using like SO broadcast with UDP. So it was actually a pretty fun lab. It was everybody went into a lab. There's about 50 to 60 computers in a lab, and the professor had a program. He's like, all right, everybody grab this program. You need to implement these networking functions, and when you are finished, when you've got it working, just the chat. There's a chat on like a projector in the front of the class, and as soon as you finish their program, run it and type your name into the chat program, and that's when you get 100% for the lab. Because as soon as you wrote the program, the chat client he had running at the front of the class would hook your, it would receive your stuff and just print out your name, and you could say whatever you wanted. So everybody, it was a pretty fun lab, because if you were in that lab when he brought everybody in and you had already taken the class, you could always just like pop open your chat client that you wrote a year ago and just start trash talking people. So it was always a real fun lab, for even if you weren't in the class. But one of them was one guy wrote the program and did like the keyboard hook stuff really shittily. And so it was hooking all of his input and just dumping it over UDP SO broadcast with every keystroke. And of course, he finished the assignment, and then he went in to like go log in to his other stuff, and he's still sending every single keyboard input to the front of the class on the projector. So, so he's just like typing in some shit, and then like after 5 minutes, people start noticing that all of his passwords and shit are just like on the projector in the front of the room. It's like, oh man, I've made a horrible mistake. But it's where you accidentally write a keylogger that sabotages yourself. Oh yeah, welcome to the wide world of C++. We spent, I think, about 3 days this week tracking down an issue from Maelstrom, which had to do with basically the difference between pound ifdef and pound define. Because basically what was happening was there were a bunch of pound defines that were compiling out Linux stuff for their project, and it was using pound if defined platform Linux for all of its compilation. But if you do pound defined, like pound if, it will actually initialize the thing to 0. But pound if def checks if it's defined. So if it's 0 is defined, but pound if thing 0 is false. So, and what was happening was in only a shipping packed build, it was corrupted at startup. The executable was fucked, and it was a real bitch to track down, because it was like the symptom of the problem was only a shipping build, only with packed files, can't find global shader cache, and you're just like, what the fuck? Like, how does this even happen? But oh yeah, a pound define in the chat CPP was wrong, using pound ifdef instead of pound defined, which caused, with how Unreal works, Unreal basically combines files into mega CPP files to compile them all together to speed up compilation. So this pound define basically, fucks up half of, whatever CPP thing it gets combined into to compile. And only in shipping, and only in this thing with pack files, is that one pound define fucking up something else that's depending upon platform Linux. And of course, what's different between Windows and Linux? File system shit. So pack files got blown to hell. Alright, so let's check our settings menu for our controls. We've got controls always active. Let's apply that as false. And restart our program. So if you go to settings, controls always active is wrong. Okay, so Yeah, there we go. So that was a real bitch to track down because, yeah, we basically just had to use Perforce and do time travel in order to just incrementally go up the change list, track it down, and even then start reverting partial files. And because it's a shipping packed build that had the problem, every single time you want to test it, you have to do a full rebuild and repackage of the project, which takes like 30 minutes. So you're sitting there just forever just trying to figure out what the fuck is wrong with this. And they were supposed to push out a patch on Saturday, and this delayed it until yesterday. So, it was a lot of time tracking that shit down. But that's a mistake I'll never make again. Or that will be a mistake that I will never overlook again, which is the pound ifs. Because that's the other thing is it's those things sometimes work and sometimes don't based on what headers got included, because how Unreal works with headers is it'll pull in different headers based on what it needs, because if you don't need engine core.h, you don't pull in engine core.h. So when that header compiles, it's gonna do what the header pulled in, and if it didn't pull in the pound define platform Linux 0, the pound if where it made it 0, the pound if def is gonna work. So sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, and then when you got header mismatches with CPPs, you get really weird shit happening because of how C++ works. It's like, oh, well, you defined this object, you declared this object as being this big, I'm just gonna assume it is. Doesn't mean it's true. Alright, so controls always active is false. So what I need to do is go into a match, right? Alright, so I'm clicked in and I click off and I get nothing. Alright, so let's go to our menu for our settings. I hit escape just because that's what I do. Let's apply that. Let's make sure it applied. It applied. Let's go back into a game. So click in, I can do things, click off, I can still do things. Okay. So there you go, Karakan, there's your setting. It'll be in the patch. I hope you're happy. Because if you're not happy about it, then, well, thanks for nothing. Alright, so the next thing that we need to look at what are these other notifications? Messages, follow-up communication for certificate transparency. Oh yeah, well, we don't really give a shit about you, so fuck off. Excellent. I'm never happy, but I love it anyway. Welcome, Andlow. Alright. So, we were working on the bots. Okay, so the next thing is, I believe I can just go ahead and work on the level actor for voting stuff. The request was if nobody votes on a new level, that the level does not change from the current level. So basically, we want to check cast votes. So let's see. Voting ended. Now the other thing is Adam was wondering if the check vote to vote, like request vote. Yeah, multicast, cast vote to vote, cast actual vote, check vote to vote. Yeah, okay, so the status was vote win or vote lost. Let's see, check vote was what we're looking for. So yeah, so I think this is what's going on. Is basically if we're in a thing with 3 people, it's going to trigger the vote. So minority is just going to be total voters divided by 3. So let me think about that. Total voters divided by 3 is going to be 1. But do we really want to cut it off at that point? So if we had 6 people, the majority would be 2. But if we had 5 people, the majority is still 1. And that means if you're in a match with 5 people, that if one person votes to start a vote for something, they can be a troll. So maybe we want to round here. So if we had 4, what if we divided by 2.5 or something like that? So if we divided by 2.5 and then we rounded, so 4 divided by 2.5 is 1.6. So you'd have to have 2 people vote to vote. Maybe we can do 2.6. So like 4 divided by 2.6, 4 divided by 2.7. All right, so I think we should do like 2.7f, and then we just do fmath round to int, and this will make it so if so we're in a match with 3 people. 3 people, we vote to vote, so we're going to divide by 2.7. So 1 person to trigger a vote. If we have 4 people divided by 2.7, 2 people have to vote on an object before it pops up in the middle of the screen. Otherwise, if we have 5 divided by 2.7, that's going to 2 people to trigger a vote. 6 divided by 2.7 is going to be 2.2, so we need 2 people to do it. All right, that works. So 2.7, that'll help the vote to vote. So the question is now, very funny story about your brother who busted his new developer today. He asked a developer last week to develop a new app for phones. He paid him half up front, and the developer told him he can start working on his app on Monday and have it ready by this Friday. His brother gets a call. The developer can't get into his app. Wrong passwords. So he only started working on it today. Only the first version published by this Friday. Well, I mean, he busted his new developer? I mean, he fired him? Alright, so let's see. He only started it today, so today is Thursday. I mean, it depends, right? So, I mean, if the developer is if the developer is very confident and he's got his stuff going and he's just gonna pull an all nighter on Thursday and get shit done, like that's not too bad. If he really thinks he can do it, I've seen people bust out phone apps, and if they've got the framework all ready to rock and roll, they're good. Um, it's just how some people work, but that's a real dumb idea, right? You know, it's a real dumb idea not to check that the basics that you can actually do something. So I wouldn't rag on him too bad for wanting to like just crunch it in all at the last moment. I mean, that's kind of what he said he'd deliver by Friday, right? It's still not Friday, so you can't shit on him too bad for that. But then like at the last second, it's just a bad goddamn idea to be like, because if your brother wasn't available or whatever, you're just flat screwed. All right. Well, I mean, it depends on how you work with contractors and all that stuff because they're people too, right? Like he's doing his own thing. But then again, I'm the kind of person who like I give people the benefit of the doubt until I don't, and then when I stop trusting them, like fuck those people, am I right? It's like I will be your friend until like my trust in you is gone, and then I am your worst enemy. Okay, so we want to check cast votes. So we're going to go through all these, get the total voters. The majority will set and do all those sorts of changes, current votes. Let's see, winners. If the vote is ending, do this thing. So where we got time involved here? Stomp teams and multi-ball? Oh man. In voting called from non-authority. Alright, so in voting is what we're doing here. Okay, so what we want to check is the total votes, right? For every vote in our current votes, add it. So the maximum is going to be that. So we want to check if the maximum is 0. Then we want the winners to be 0. Okay, so winners.num is this. So if basically want to check is if max is equal to 0. Otherwise, we'll do this. So if max is equal to 0, let's put it inside of here so we have a check for the winner's number. Winner is going to be zip. Let's just do an info log. No votes were cast. Selecting first option to preserve current game mode. All right, let's go test that out, make sure it works. Your brother took it well? 35 bucks. He stopped expanding the parking lot with his... What? He's calm now? I don't know. Like, if the developer was really being a douchebag, he would have just gone silent, right? And just taken the money and left. You know? Made up some other bullshit. You know, if it's being honest... At least there's that, right? So, you know, I'm one of those guys who likes to just, like, go to contracts if something's wrong and not hold somebody as wrong until they violate the contract. You know, and until then, it's fine. Such as, you know, if the contract is this work needs to be done by this time, and, you know, they until it actually passes, you know, it's like, just let them do what they're going to do. And help them succeed, you know, if they're trying or whatever. But as soon as they fuck up, well, that's when that's different, you know. But don't... I guess that's one of those things that, like, he's a very young guy, a little new. Yeah, that makes sense. So what we want to do is we want to go make a game... And we want to end the match and all that sort of stuff. Make sure that the voting cast is 0. Because I guess that's one thing that... So we should get Midnight Ridge. That it's one thing that people will do if, like, it's, you not only want to control what somebody does, but how they do it. And I think that kind of probably goes back to, you know, experiences in school and other places where you get really frustrated with authority figures. Not only, no votes were cast, selecting first option, preserve current game mode. Excellent. Not only will people want to control, you know, you getting the right answer on, like, a math problem, but they want to control exactly how you found that answer. And you know what? Like, I really don't like it that people get pissed off about, like, guess and check being not a real way to solve a problem. I mean, guess and check is intuitively finding the result through just brute force. And it's a very valid option to pretty much, it's a very valid skill. Like, being able to brute force a solution to a problem you don't know how to solve is like, no, guess and check is a great fucking way to, like, figure crap out. Like, if you can sit there and not understand a problem and still get the right answer through just, like, competence, it doesn't matter in the real world. You found the right answer. It doesn't matter that you didn't know calculus properly or some other bullshit. You know, like, if somebody goes and, like, what we need to do is figure out how much concrete to put in this bridge to keep it upright, you know, nobody really gives a shit if, you know, the way you do it is with dowsing rods or with actual math and textbooks. If you get the right answer and can back it up with information, be my guest. You know, you can build that bridge. I'm fine with that. You know, but if it's the wrong answer, well, you know, that's different. You know, that's just stupid. All right, so our voting system is working, but we do have a side effect here. Okay, so the problem was when we did the divide by 2.7, the majority here is wrong because when we're a majority of 1, we're going to divide 1 by 2.7 and get something wrong. So what we should probably do is do something like total voters minus 1 plus 1 or something like that. So let me think about that. A minority is going to be basically half minus 1 or something like that. Is that another plan? Or should we just take a minimum of 1? We'll just do a max of 1. How about that? Yeah, we'll see tomorrow what the first version looks like. It's true. I mean, when you're working with contractors or other people like that, the big thing is in those relationships is just trust, right? So you're not going to develop trust. I don't know. It's like when we're working with a composer guy, if he says he's going to start work on Monday, I really don't give a shit if he really starts work on Monday. I care if, you know, we give him a deadline, and if he makes that deadline, that's it. That's fine with me. I don't care. It's like, is he shorting me? No. Like, I'm paying him for a job. That's why you have a contract that says you deliver this many minutes of music or something like that, and it works. And if the minutes of music you deliver to me aren't up to my standards, I either won't pay you the rest of it or I won't work with you again. And you never know. People can have legitimate excuses or illegitimate excuses for not working on stuff, so I don't know. It's all, if you're going to get that worked up over somebody you haven't worked with before, I'm assuming, is young, you already think he's going to screw something up, and then you get angry when he does screw something up. It's like, well, you expected him to screw something up. You should be angry at yourself for trusting somebody that you already expected to fail. You know, like, it. For instance, let's say you got like some dude, Jim Bob, and you put him in charge of the nuclear reactor. And you're like, hey, Jim Bob, this is the first day on the job. If this needle goes to the left, like, you need to call me. But Jim Bob is a raging alcoholic, and you know that. And you're just like, all right, Jim Bob, this is your job. This is your one job, Jim Bob. If this thing goes to the left, you call me. Jim Bob's like, awesome, cool. I'll be right here in the nuclear reactor watching the needle. And as soon as you leave, Jim Bob goes across the street to 7-Eleven, buys a whole bunch of booze, gets drunk, and falls asleep on the needle. You never get the call. The nuclear reactor explodes. Is it Jim Bob's fault or is it your fault? You know, like, you can throw Jim Bob under the bus, but you're probably not going to find him because he hightailed it down to Mexico because he's like, shit, I just caused the biggest nuclear reactor in history because I got drunk off of some PBR, and I think I better leave. So that vote didn't go through. Let me take a look. So what is the majority here? The majority was 1. What in the hell? If the votes cast is equal to total voters, ayes is greater than or equal to majority. That is the kind of guy you read about in the bus miss. Didn't get him. Usually I work way more hours than I tell a client. Yeah, that's the other thing. And as a result of that, you know, your clients are going to have a lot more trust in you. I don't know. I guess it's more of a difference. Like I guess I don't really get upset about other people failing because then I'd always be upset. Like I can control what I do, but I really can't control what other people do. So if I get upset over that, I'm just gonna be always pissed. I mean, I'm always already angry, but I'm not really angry. I'm kind of faux angry. Those have figured out, and then they want more and want to pay less. Well, yeah. Yeah. That can be. It really depends on what you're doing. I assume you're more of a. If you're probably, you follow Adam, so you're probably doing more creative stuff. I think you guys get the short end of the stick a lot of the times. Like engineers, etc. I think there's not nearly as many of them, but I think there's a lot more artists, and you guys get screwed a lot more by life than some of that. So I don't want to like minimize your opinion there, and that's definitely a case where I think people get screwed. How is this fucking false? Like, the majority is 1. The ayes is 1. Result now should definitely be true. Oh, vote win. Okay, fine. Oh, he changed the fucking... Yeah, okay, I'm dumb. Yeah, okay. I'm looking at the wrong piece of UI. So we got that solved. So we got the voting good to go. Creative work is very fuzzy, not clear guidelines with work per time frame. Yeah, we had to fire our audio guy before our current composer because like the stuff he delivered was awful, and And the thing was, like, it was just really bad, but, you know, we paid him. Because, I don't know, it was more of a... like, Adam really didn't want to pay that guy. He's like, what the fuck? I'm paying this other guy. I'm just like, I get it, but we said we would pay them. You know, the contract is pretty clear. You know, we can go to arbitration or some shit if we really don't like these guys, but like at some point here, you gotta honor the bargain, otherwise you're the bad guy in the situation. Like, just because the work was dog shit doesn't mean he doesn't get paid. Like, that's not how the contract is written. And basically, we're gonna have to go outside the contract. And do you really want to be that guy? But the work was really bad, so we didn't pay full price. Basically told them, we shouldn't pay you anything. And they're like, well, let's do something. They're like, all right, what do you think's fair? You know, let's work it out. Which we did. But we don't work with those guys. Then there are actresses. Oh my god, she yelled at me for asking her to redo one line. Told me shouldn't play director on her. Oh man, that sounds like somebody else is yelling at her, and she's yelling at you because she wants to yell at somebody else. Or she's just a stuck-up bitch. Or bastard. I don't know, I haven't worked with any actors or actresses, so... It was a New Yorker. Oh, yeah. Because that explains everything. Let's see. Okay, so the request was also... make the pop-up not be interrupted when you hit the ground. The other thing is... Alright, I need to... organize a few of these things. So we got vote screen testing, make it so there are no votes, the game mode doesn't change. Remove missions from non-editor builds. Remove the sticky ball playlist. Add Autobots playlist. We need to implement the bot game modes. So we need balance bots. We need right bots. We need left bots implemented. And bots destroyed after matches. Make the pop-up not interrupted. So, make the pop-up not interrupted when you hit the ground. Let's see exactly what is going on with that. So I think it's inside player, logic, object. See, the only New Yorkers I've had to deal with are like a cousin, but I was always like young and she was old and nobody gave a shit, so. But she always talked about how much better New York was and like, well, I can get all this food and all this other shit and you can't get it over here. And I'm just like, whoop-de-fucking-do. Why don't you go back to New York? If New York is so much better than everywhere else, why do you leave New York for vacation? You know, really nice. The other guy was our IT guy down at Molten Games. This guy Dan is a New Yorker, and that guy was fun. Like he would just yell at people, but at the same time, he was your best friend. Like if you needed something, that dude would just fucking do it. You know, but he'd tell you when he had an opinion. And he was really good at business relationships with vendors and stuff like that because he'd bust their balls on prices, but every company he'd go to, he'd go back to those same vendors and, you know, he gave them business and, you know, they did business with him and, you know, it was kind of a hostile relationship, but they worked together and really helped each other out throughout like their entire careers. So it's like, yeah, you can have business relationships and yell at each other, and it fucking works. The trust is there, even if you're doing your shit. They're not fake like LA people. They get in your face, but are always yeah. That's what I experienced. Also, they also when they like their sports teams, and they like to get really wasted when their sports teams win. All right, so basically we want to go to the... Where are we interrupting the effect? So it's like when we have the defend. So defendability. So if we are on the ground is false. So there's another thing that you can't actually defend more than once in the air. Like you have to touch the ground again to use your pop-up again. Is that... I would like some opinions on that if people have them. Which is basically, let me just pull up the production game. Because you can't do more than one defend. But as soon as you hit the ground, you see, like, that's what Karakan is talking about is, I can't hit the ground and do a defend. So, let's see, should defend. So if we are defending, is true. If key triggered, defend, and controllable, then we should defend. If we are on the ground is true. If we are on the ground, false. GM can pop up. Clear abilities, get physics state in the air, blah, 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 blah. Set ability used. Okay, so... So let's see, if we're in the air, on exit, so playing intro, animation locked, get landing animation name. I don't remember where exactly I should just go to the practice level. I think if you jump again, it'll let you pop up again. Okay, so it's not inside of the movement stuff. It's going to be inside of this, so if on ground is true, okay, so I guess it's this guy, it's this clear abilities. It might be this guy, so let me just double check. Yeah, so what was our unlock animation does not equal -1? I think this is just a bug. This should be if this is equal to -1, because we shouldn't be stopping our defend. Or should we? Let me just see, what is this logic even supposed to do? This is saying if we are defending and we use the air defend and we are still defending, then we want to stop defending. So why don't we just see what happens if we just bypass this? Like that. Because I want to know why I put this in here. Like, I obviously put this in here for a reason. To stop us from defending on the ground when we land. Because it looks pretty fucking bad. So pretty much what we want to do is, instead of that, because I mean the animation just looks like shit. We pretty much would want to play an animation, you know, the normal animation, right? Maybe that's what we need to do. So when we hit the ground, he would instead go into the like other pop-up animation. Alright, so we basically want to call this animation, or like, get duration, all that stuff. Blueprint guy told me he sets up his own controller blueprint that basically broadcasts to all other blueprints to tell him it's okay or not okay to allow certain actions. Interesting concept, kind of a headquarters blueprint. I mean, yeah, using event-based stuff could work. This is more of a, it looks like I disabled this mainly because it just looked like dog crap, because the animation is specific to the air, so when you land, it would just look odd. So what I need to do is I need to grab the current animation, I need to get the percent finished, and calculate that sort of thing. So what I need to do is get the percent finished, so what, like get duration of the animation? No. So it's going to be like this defend anim speed multiplied by this guy. No. So this will be the duration.